Hello everybody, Drywall Repairman here. We're doing a stress crack repair in a garage. Stress cracks in any house is a common repair, drywall repair. I probably do at least 1 to 3 jobs a week just fixing stress cracks. It's a very common repair. I'm sure if you look around your home, you'll find a stress crack or two that needs to be repaired. This is a common repair to fix. The first thing I like to do in any stress cracks is pick my work area and stick to the one work area. Usually just one room. In this one, it's just a garage. It's a full length garage crack. I would say about 20 to 25 linear feet. Full length of the garage in the middle of the garage tells me that it's a stress point. Stress point from the garage door opening and closing. The vibration, it's a very common repair. So our first step is we always want to put down plastic, tarps, get everything ready to rock and roll. But these tape seams, we always want to dig them out. I use a 6-inch knife. A lot of guys just go and repair. They put the tape, fiberglass tape, and mud right over the existing crack. But to do this correctly, you're going to have to dig out the old tape. You have to dig it out. And this repair I'm doing on the wall looks like they already taped over it. That's what that blue fiberglass mesh tape is. They just put tape over the repair and that's it. And then it re-cracked out. We don't want this to re-crack out, so we're going to dig out past any repair and get down to the original paper tape if possible. If you cannot get down to the original paper tape, then you're going to have to turn around and V-notch each crack. V-notching, I have several videos on my playlist on V-notching, so that's a separate process. But on this process, we're going to go ahead and we're going to dig out the old tape. And then once we get the tape dug out, we're going to turn around and put screws in it to tighten up the existing sheetrock on both sides of the sheets. And then we're going to fiberglass it. Then turn around and do a first coat, second coat, and even do a tight third coat and texture. But we're going ahead, did this seam on the wall right here to show you the whole process. It's a little 2-foot section. But then I'm going to actually get up on the ceiling, and then we're going to do the full length of the ceiling, 20 foot linear foot ceiling crack. Basically goes the full length. Like I said, digging out these seams, it's a real tedious process. Nobody wants to do this. It's messy, it takes time, you got stuff dropping on your face, but this is what it takes. You're going to have to dig out this tape seam if possible. Sometimes they come out really easy. Sometimes they're stubborn like this one. I'm sitting here picking inch by inch, and it's giving me a time, but I'm sitting here taking my time doing it. This is most important. Putting mud on the job and mudding everything, that's the easy part. But you want to take your time with this prep work. You want to clean out the crack, get all that old stuff out. If you didn't do this, your repair can probably hold up, but you want to do it the correct way. You don't want to have to ever do this again. If you dig out the original tape, it also creates a groove, a nice niche groove where the old tape used to sit. So when you go to fiberglass mesh tape, the fiberglass will sit inside that groove. And then you can turn around and mud over that groove, and you have a nice channel where the mud sits. So you're not putting a big, huge first coat, second coat over and creating a hump or a crowned repair on your ceiling. That's what you don't want. So this channel that you create takes a little time digging out, getting it prepped up, but it's well worth it when it's all said and done when you turn around and do the mudding process, because you don't have to use as much materials and it's easier to coat out the area. Take your time, take your time. It's going to take a lot of time to dig out this tape, fiberglass. It's going to take some time, but go ahead and it's worth the trouble. Like I said, some jobs easily, it comes out easy. One peel, the whole tape seam will come out. Since this is a newer house, it's really stuck on there. The paint's a few years old, so the good paint, sometimes it's a bear to get out. But you're just going to have to work at it inch by inch, foot by foot, until you finish the whole process. This one took 20-foot long seam. So I'm digging out the seam. Basically, it's 2 sheets of drywall that meet each other. The joint seam. You got butt seams. The butts are the 4-foot sections. The joint seams are the full sections of the drywall. Sheetrock's usually 12-foot, 8-foot seams. So this is basically the joint seams where the sheetrocks meet up against each other. The recessed part. Dig it out, get everything dug out. Finally, after a long time of digging out, we got it all dug out. You get a good piece here, a good piece there, get it all dug out. Once you get everything dug out, you're going to have to add screws. You're going to have to add a lot of drywall screws. I always recommend putting a drywall screw on each side and go ahead and take it out a couple inches. Add 2 or 3 screws on each side of the sheetrock. Basically, this is 2 sheets of sheetrock, so you want to get each side of the sheetrock tightened up. I put a couple extra screws in because I know that's a vibration. So after channeling the old tape, getting the old tape out of there, putting screws in it, tighten up both sides of the sheetrock, and doing a fiberglass and a hot mud. If it cracks after this, then you know you got some serious structural movement. This is the best repair we can do. Drywall repairman. Go ahead and add plenty of screws, fiberglass tape. If you're not sure about the fiberglass tape, you can also double layer it. Basically, you want to put screws every stud or every truss. More screws the better. You don't want to go far out. You don't want to go 2-3 feet out past, because you're going to have to coat and texture every screw head you put in. So I usually just take it out about 6 inches because I know my texture is going to cover that. Once you get everything ready, time to mix some hot mud. I'm using hot mud here. You can also use joint compounds. If you're not familiar with working with hot muds, then go ahead and use a joint compound. Joint compounds are going to have to let dry overnight. With these hot muds, they're quick set. I use hot muds because I do these jobs in one trip. Tape coated and textured in one trip. That's why I use hot muds. It's a stronger material, but it's less forgiving if you do make a mistake. I'm going to go through and coat everything with the first coat with the hot mud. This is a 5-minute mud. Then I'm going to turn around and slick it out. I slick it out with a wet sponge and a 6-inch knife. Basically, it's like a wet sanding technique. I'm going to take off all the extra mud and basically fill it in. Kind of like a wet sanding, but you're not sanding. You're using a wet sponge and a 6-inch knife. This is the process we use in all hot muds. If you're using a joint compound, you're going to have to turn around and actually sand the joint compounds in between coats. That's why I like to use the hot muds. They don't make a lot of dust. They're quicker to work with, but it's a more intermediate type of material to use. If it's your first time job, first time ever mudding, stick to a joint compound. Same thing, then we just slick everything out. And then you're going to follow it with a second coat mud. I'm using a second coat mud. I'm doing also with the hot mud. And then after it's setting up, same thing here with the hot muds. I'm going to have to slick them out, slick out all the hot muds. This is a 5-minute mud. I like to use 5-minute muds because I work pan by pan. Some people, you're not comfortable working that fast like I am. I am a drywaller. I do it every day, so it's in and out for me. If you're not in a hurry, go ahead and use a different type of hot mud, 20, 40, 90-minute mud. And if you're not comfortable mixing up these hot muds, of course, just use a joint compound for coats. It just takes longer in between days. You have to let the mud set up. Second coats, I always go past my first coat, feather it out nicely. Just a nice coating. I'm not putting on the mud super heavy. I'm just doing a tight skim second coat. Once you get all done, always clean up your tools. I'm cleaning up my tools in the bucket and a sponge. Once your second coat mud sets up, slick it out. Most important is getting rid of the edge. Your edge of your mud, that sharp edge. You always want to feather out that edge with the sponge. A damp sponge is your best friend in the drywall trade. Sponge out everything, slick it out. We're basically getting everything ready for the next coat. It's like a wet sanding technique. You're just following it through with your 6-inch knife, slicking everything out, making everything pretty. Basically, you want to make the coat process. If I turn around and paint it now, would it look good? Yes? Okay, it's ready for texture. No, it's still kind of rough. Okay, well, I better follow through with a third coat. Now we're going to follow through and do a tight third coat. I'm using a joint compound for my third coat. I'm just doing a tight skim coat. The mud consistency is like a heavy pancake batter. We're just doing a cross off, basically going the opposite direction as my first and second coat, just a cross off tight skim to fill in any chatters, any rough areas. Really tight skim, we're just filling in, basically making a nice perfect coat seam. You do a tight skim coat like this and it sets up pretty quickly so you can follow through with the texture. With my texture, this is calls for a skip trowel. Your job may have a different type texture, that's fine. Texture is just cosmetic finish. But this is a skip trowel. I'm using either a joint compound, thinned down to a heavy pancake batter, or redline mud. My area, I can buy this redline mud. You mix it up powder form. It's a yellower mud. It makes a perfect skip trowel or perfect Santa Fe mud that we use. I think it has less glue than joint compounds, so it's easier to work with. I only use this mostly for skip trowels. Like I said, you can use a joint compound also for your skip trowels or most of your texture types. I'm going to go ahead and skip trowel this. I usually start on my outside edges to see the direction of the skip trowel. I go on the outside edges, create your pattern, and make sure you go the same direction as the original skip trowel. I'm using a 6-inch knife. Some of these guys like to use bigger knives. You can use a big knife, sure, but trust me, with a 6-inch knife, a straight 6-inch knife, you have more knife control and you can do a perfect match. So if you're not the best drywaller, use a 6-inch knife and you'll be surprised what you can do. Sometimes you can practice on an old piece of sheetrock or cardboard until you get your desired texture. Something like this, if you're not comfortable with trying to match the textures, then you can, of course, at least get the patch coated and ready for texture and just let it be, or hire someone to do the texture matching for you. Texture is just a cosmetic finish, and I know every city, every state has a different type of texture finish. Where I'm located, I'm in Arizona, Phoenix area, Mesa area, so the textures out here, new houses like this that are 20, 30 years old have skip trowels, Santa Fe's. Older homes have spray knockdowns, splatters. Older homes than that, then you start getting into crow's foot and stuff like that. So like every decade or every other decade, we seem to get a new type of texture. Skip trowel's been around for a long time, but it's really popular now in most homes, track homes, homes built in the last 20, 30 years. But just follow through, and I'm just skip trowel and texturing as I go. Like I said, depending on your project, you may have a different type texture. So depending on your texture type, you just match it. I have plenty of videos on my playlist of different type textures. I got spray knockdowns, splatters, Santa Fe's, crow's foots, popcorn, skip trowels. There's so many different type textures out there. So you just find the type of texture you're going to do. Once you get it all textured out, skip trowel like this, you usually let it dry 24 hours for mud. And then you just lightly sand it with 150 grit and always primer. Always primer your drywall repairs. Even a small nail hole with drywall mud needs primer. You always primer and seal drywall because the drywall is mud, so it wants to absorb a lot of paint. So you always put a drywall sealer like a Kills or just a PVA drywall sealer before you paint. And then once you paint, the paint goes on and it doesn't try to absorb into the center of the patch where it's really heavy in mud. Mud likes to absorb water, mud likes to absorb paint. So that's why I put the sealer on to seal the porous holes, the absorption of the mud. So seal it, then paint, and you're in good shape. And doing this drywall repair with the stress crack we did here should last a long time. If it cracks after this process, then you know you got some structural movement. But that's pretty much it. We're getting some more subscribers. I hope you like this video. I'm going to be making plenty more. I am a licensed drywaller. I work in the field, so I try to make these videos as best as possible while I'm trying to make a living. I don't have someone here watching me, making videos for me. I'm doing everything by myself, and I'm trying to work on my jobs. So I hope these videos are helpful. Maybe you see it and something you can do. Maybe you see it and you decide you should hire a professional. If you're in doubt, always hire a professional, because drywall, you'll look at it every day. So if you don't do a good job, you're going to be looking at it. So hire a professional if you're not comfortable doing any of this. This is just education purposes only, so watch it and hopefully it helps you out. But hey, please subscribe, like,